I object to violence because when it appears to do good, the good is only temporary. The evil it does is permanent. That was Mahatma Gandhi. But soon enough, he became an advocate to recruit Indian men to fight in the ruthless World War I, a war that was not even our own. A war that would fuel the power of the empire that had subjugated the people of this very land, left many dead and many widowed, and a population that did not see a future at all. Why did the Mahatma do this? Leave his ideas to change and flow that seemingly always put India and its freedom to a halt. Was he really a Mahatma that you and I are told of, or was he just a pawn put in place to halt the struggle? Well, it's not that simple. So today, we'll ask a few questions and post a few observations, and leave the truth to your interpretation. But here's a piece of advice. Remember that everything in this world, except the gods and the nature, is always in the grey. With that in mind, let's begin. So, Gandhi, as we know him today, a saint who fought for India, his principles, ahimsa and dharma. Such good things to hear. But here are the events that would surprise you, events that Gandhi supported and were directly in contradiction to his ideas. The Moplah massacre, recruitment of Indian soldiers in World War I, and the Chauri Chaura incident. Now this happens to be among the many other issues that he supported. Let's take all of those one by one. The Moplah massacre. It all begins from the time when the Ottoman Empire was on the brink of a collapse. At the end of the World War I, the Turks had to sign many treaties which sought to dismantle the empire, and the Caliph would have to abdicate or would have to be severely weakened. This incident naturally sparked a global movement in the Muslim community. They protested against the British, and there were calls to fight for reinstating the Caliph. As expected, this movement did reach India. It was championed by the likes of Maulana Shaukat Ali, Maulana Muhammad Ali, and other leaders of the All India Muslim League. Remember that name. Now then, the movement was of very little importance to an ordinary Indian. I mean, why would they have to do anything with the Caliph? So why should they, as a population, already, I might add, facing severe challenges of their own, have to fight and battle one more challenge? But as my friends, history has it, Gandhi supported the Caliphate, knowing fully well that people who were supporting it had an agenda of communalism and division between the Hindu and the Muslim society. In fact, Ambedkar as well was surprised at this move of Gandhi and said, and I quote, "The movement was started by the Mohammedans. It was taken up by Mr. Gandhi with tenacity and faith," which might have surprised many Mohammedans themselves. There were many people who doubted the ethical basis of the Khilafat movement and tried to dissuade Mr. Gandhi from taking any part in the movement, the ethical basis of which was so questionable, unquote. Now, the movement was called the Khilafat movement, which many non-Muslims Indian became a part of on Gandhi's call. As the movement grew, so did the disdain towards any establishment that was particularly non-Muslim. Those who sought division had succeeded, and tensions ran high. Tensions that were soon to be drenched in the blood of the Hindus of Malabar. On 22nd August 1921, the Jamaat Mosque declared Malabar a part of the Caliphate, accounting Ali Musaliyar as the Islamic ruler. The flags of the Turkish Caliphate were hoisted on institutional buildings, symbolizing the assertion of religious dominance. Strikingly, none of the slogans raised by the rioters echoed nationalism or anti-British sentiment. Their focus was solely on establishing an Islamic order. On 25th September 1921, one of the most horrific acts of animalistic and uncivilized nature took place. People of the Hindu faith, who may I add had resided in the region of Malabar through centuries, were killed by some barren-headed fanatics who never understood rationale, culture or logic. Wanna guess the number? Not 10, not 100, not 500, it was not even 1,000. The estimated number of casualties was 10 bloody thousand. Wait a moment and soak in that number. 10,000 people killed, and that is the most conservative estimate we have. If that is not enough, here is an incident for you to recall from that day. On that day, on the barren hillside between Thuvur and Korvakandi in northern Kerala, Imbachi Koithangal, a prominent Khilafat leader, convened a rally attended by over 4,000 of his barren-headed followers. During this gathering, more than 40 Hindus were captured, their hands tied behind their backs, and they were brought before him. What followed was a horrifying act of brutality. 38 of them were murdered. While 3 were shot, the rest were gruesomely beheaded, their bodies colossally discarded into the well nearby. Like any simple logical person, you would think that this is a sinister event, and these are not the people you can ever have a discussion with. But Mr. Gandhi, for some reason, had a different view, and we only wonder why. So what exactly was his view, you might ask? Well, Gandhi urged Hindus not to let forced conversions or violence weaken the Hindu-Muslim unity, dismissing the need for prashchit for those forcibly converted. He suggested that such incidents should not disrupt the broader nationalist movement, which I don't know what it was. One would ask, what exactly was the nationalist goal? After all, a divided land, because that's what we got. Now I want you to make a mental note of this incident, because we will refer back to it in some time too. Now here's the thing, for someone so adamant about the principles of non-violence, why exactly did Gandhi actively advocate for Indian troops to be sent for the fighting in the English wars? Interestingly, this wasn't the first time Gandhi supported British military efforts. During his time in South Africa, he served as a sergeant major in the Indian Ambulance Corps during the Boer War and the Zulu Rebellion. Now later, during the World War I, Gandhi proposed raising an India volunteer unit for the British war effort. His rationale: Gandhi believed supporting the British in their time of need would eventually strengthen India's case for self-rule. He even went as far as organizing recruitment drives, collecting funds and appealing to Indians to join, not just as non-combatants might I add, but as full-fledged soldiers. Gandhi's reasoning was baffling and short-sighted. He argued that supporting the British in their time of need would win India political concession and eventually self-rule. Yet history showed that these hopes were naive at the very best, as British promptly backtracked on their promises after the war. Gandhi's decision to campaign for Indian enlistments, even collecting funds and organizing drives, ignoring the brutal reality of colonial subjugation, was naive and shouldn't have happened. Instead of rallying Indians to fight for their own freedom, he urged them to fight for an empire that saw them as expendable at best. Even more troubling were Gandhi's justifications. He claimed that military training would instill discipline and prepare Indians for self-defense. He went so far as to link the ability to endure physical violence with the practice of non-violence, an argument that not only strained logic but also undermined his own philosophy. Moreover, logically speaking, if blood had to be shed, why should Indian soldiers not fight for their own motherland? If they could sacrifice their life for a monarch and a monarch's rule, surely they would have shown even greater commitment to their own freedom. But we can only wonder why. Now, after what felt like ages due to the valiant struggles of Indians inspired by leaders like Netaji, Bhagat Singh and Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and to an extent Gandhi as well, combined with the heroic efforts of the Indian Navy in 1946 and a weakened England after World War II, India was finally on the brink of independence. Fast forward to the spring of 1946. The Congress convened to decide the next president, who would succeed Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. The Congress Pradesh Committees, PCCs for short, overwhelmingly supported Sardar Patel. Patel got 12 out of the 15 present votes. Meanwhile, the remaining 3 people, they abstained. It's intriguing to note that Nehru, the blue-eyed boy of Gandhi, secured none. However, as we know, Gandhi intervened and exercised his influence to favor Nehru despite Patel's strong backing. Gandhi believed that Nehru's modern and foreign educated outlook made him more suited for a leadership in an independent India compared to Patel, who he viewed him as more orthodox. Moreover, Gandhi feared that Nehru, who had refused to play second fiddle and even hinted at splitting the Congress if denied, could derail the independence process. Now, being a visionary leader that Gandhi was, he should have contained Nehru. After all, he did seem to be aware of the power-hungry nature. But he did not, and we can only wonder why. This decision proved costly for the nation. It set a dangerous precedent for top-down, high-command decisions, sidelining inner-party democracy. Moreover, and more importantly, Nehru's tenure as Prime Minister was marked by significant blunders, including the mishandling of the Kashmir situation and failing to heed Patel's warning about China, which ultimately led to the humiliating Sino-Indian War in 1962. Even critics of Patel later acknowledged that Gandhi had miscalculated. Maulana Azad admitted in his autobiography that Patel's leadership could have successfully implemented the cabinet mission plan, avoiding partition. Moreover, C. Rajagopalachari, who once harbored personal grievances against Patel, also conceded that Patel as Prime Minister would have been better for India, stating, and I quote, "Undoubtedly, it would have been better if Nehru had been asked to be the Foreign Minister and Patel made the Prime Minister." I too fell in the error of believing Jawaharlal was the more enlightened person of the two. A myth had grown about Patel that he would be harsh towards Muslims. This was a wrong notion, but it was the prevailing prejudice, unquote. Remember folks, I told you to make a mental note of the Moplah incident. If there is something one would learn from incidents like those, it would be the fact that when people who do not like you, do not wish to stay with you, and are a hindrance to the harmony and are going a different route, you let them go. If you can arrange a transportation, you do that as well, but you ensure the baggage of such inflexible mindset is not left behind. But Gandhi, for all it was worth, decided to play paternalistic. After the horrific violence of partition, when the dust had still not settled and the winters had set in, the people of the Mio community had decided to leave India for good. Following the creation of Pakistan, they did not see a viable future in India. But then Gandhi stepped in. He went to the Jasra village near modern-day Gurugram and persuaded the people who wanted to leave to stay, stating, and I quote, "India belongs to you and you belong to India," unquote. But my friends, that has not changed the stark reality on the ground. The fact is, in that region, communal tensions have resulted in multiple riots and multiple casualties, and people struggle for a peaceful environment till today. Now folks, this video is not an outright claim towards anything. Rather, it's the opposite. It's a presentation of some points and observations, and it only aims to discuss and question the nature of events that took place around Gandhi. There are many more dimensions to the Gandhi story. His commentaries on black people from his time in South Africa, the fact that he and Nehru were detained in great palaces, given diaries to put their thoughts down. Meanwhile, people who were not in the sphere of ideas were thrown in the dark alleys of Andaman and some were executed. Now, we won't be covering all of that in today's video, but they do make for a great point of discussion. So if you liked today's video and wish to see another part of it, do lend us a like, a comment, and we would really appreciate if you could share this with your fellow friends and family. Thank you.